Marco filed a claim in small claims court, seeking compensation for Samuel's medical bills and emotional distress. The amount was modest, just under $2,000, but the principle mattered more than the money. Maria and her husband, Robert Hernandez, hired a lawyer and prepared their defense. They compiled evidence. The police report from the second incident showing that Carmen had called 911 and that the other dog had been unleashed. Character witnesses who testified to Snowball's gentle nature and their own timeline of events. Your Honor, Maria would later argue, if my dog had really bitten this boy, there would have been blood, torn clothing, and immediate reaction. The fact that he simply walked away without saying anything proves that, at most, the dog snapped at him or maybe scratched him with a tooth. But Marco had evidence too. Photographs of the puncture wounds, medical records detailing the treatment, and Samuel's own testimony about what happened. When Samuel took the stand, his hands trembled slightly, but his voice was clear. I was walking home from school, he began, describing the encounter in careful detail. The dog was jumping around and growling. The lady said, "Don't do it," to the dog. When I passed them, the dog went around behind her and bit me on my left leg. Why didn't you tell the owner what happened? The judge asked. Samuel hesitated. I don't know. I was scared, I guess, and shocked. I just wanted to get home. Maria's lawyer seized on this during cross-examination. Isn't it true that you didn't say anything because nothing really happened? That maybe you felt a tooth scrape against your pants, but you weren't actually bitten? No, Samuel said firmly. I was bitten. I have the scars to prove it. And he did. Even weeks later, 2 small circular scars marked his calf where Snowball's teeth had punctured the skin. The judge, a woman in her late 60s with decades of experience on the bench, listened carefully to all the testimony. She examined the medical records, the photographs, the police reports from both incidents. Ms. Hernandez, she said finally, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. I've had dogs for 50 years. I walk my dogs on leashes. And I can tell you from personal experience that when a dog is agitated enough to be jumping and growling, a responsible owner doesn't just hold the leash and hope for the best. You stop. You create distance. You warn the approaching person that your dog is not in a friendly mood. Maria opened her mouth to respond, but the judge held up a hand. I don't doubt that you love your dog. I don't doubt that most of the time, Snowball is a gentle, friendly animal. But on December 8th, your dog bit this young man. The medical evidence is clear. The testimony is credible. And your story, forgive me for being blunt, has inconsistencies that trouble me. The judge ruled in favor of Samuel, awarding damages for medical expenses, pain and suffering, and emotional distress. Maria and Robert left the courthouse in stunned silence. They'd been so certain they were in the right, so convinced that their account of events was accurate. The reality of the judgment hit them hard, not just financially but emotionally. Maybe Snowball did bite him, Robert said quietly as they drove home. Maybe it happened so fast you didn't even realize it. Maria stared out the window, replaying the incident in her mind for the 1,000th time. Had she missed something? Had she been so focused on the stroller and keeping Sophia happy that she'd failed to see what her dog had done? For Samuel, the victory felt hollow. He had the money to cover his medical bills, but he still had the scars. And more than that, he had a lingering fear of dogs that hadn't existed before. Every time he saw someone walking a pet, his heart rate spiked, and he found himself crossing the street to avoid them. His father noticed the change and arranged for some counseling sessions to help Samuel work through the trauma. Slowly, over months, Samuel began to heal. Not just physically but emotionally. As for Snowball, the dog was enrolled in behavioral training classes. Maria committed herself to being a more vigilant owner, always maintaining control, always aware of her dog's mood and demeanor. The incident on Bishopsgate Street became a cautionary tale in the neighborhood, a reminder that even small, friendly-looking dogs can bite, that responsible pet ownership requires constant attention, and that the consequences of a moment's inattention can last far longer than anyone expects. Years later, Samuel would tell the story to friends as a learning experience. It taught me that it's okay to speak up when something bad happens, he'd say. I should have said something right away. But I also learned that people will stand up for you when you need it. My dad didn't let it go. He made sure I got justice. And in her own way, Maria learned too. She learned that good intentions aren't enough. That I didn't mean for it to happen doesn't undo the harm. And that taking responsibility, even when it's painful and expensive, is part of being an adult and a member of a community. The scars faded with time, but the lessons remained.